Hello, this is Janet Morana. Excuse me. I'm the executive director of Priests for Life. I also co-founded the Silent No More Awareness Campaign. Well, today we're going to present you another one of our programs from the Gospel of Life, shows that Father Pavone and I did a number of years ago for Sky Angel. And we interviewed today Dr. Philip Ney, Canadian psychiatrist, who will talk to you about abortion and guilt. So let's take a look at the program now.
Next on Gospel of Life, a psychiatrist explores one of our most common emotions. Hello, I'm Father Frank Pavone, Director of Gospel of Life Ministries. Welcome to our program. Have you been feeling guilty lately? Well, it's a feeling we all have at various times. And today, together with our Associate Director, Janet Morana, we're going to explore guilt with the help of a key psychiatrist and researcher. Janet, as you know, our friend Dr. Philip Ney is a top-rate psychiatrist and psychologist. He's been practicing since 1965, and he is also a world-class researcher on the topic of abortion. In fact, no one in the world has done more research on abortion than has Dr. Ney. He has been a full professor, as you know, in 5 different universities on several different continents, a medical researcher, reviewer of medical journals. He is doing groundbreaking research in various aspects of the harm that abortion does. And today he's going to talk to us about the question of abortion and guilt.
Well, you know, Father, very often when we deal with abortion and guilt, people from the other side, the pro-abortion people, they accuse us, the religious people, of putting all this guilt on people about abortion. And if we didn't bring religion or spirituality into the abortion debate, that there would be no guilt, that women would not feel guilty. Though, first of all, I know from my experience with the women and men of Silent No More Awareness Campaign that there's definite guilt. But as Dr. Ney points out, within the clips, is that guilt is a little bit more basic in our nature. It's not something like you can turn off and on because of some spirituality. It's really part of our nature. And one example he uses is about, like, for example, a dog. And I think most people can relate to it. I know with my own little dog, Ario, I can. You know, the dog, he knows when he's done something wrong. For example, you know, he's come into the room and he's kind of maybe thrown up a little bit or made a little accident. Right away, they crouch down and they get this little look, you know.
I've seen that look on Oreo.
Yeah, and they know they're guilty about something. And so you have to say, well, is this something that, you know, someone around there is? No, the dog knows innately something was wrong.
It's biologically based, and
Exactly.
that's one of the key points Dr. Ney will make here in this clip. So let's see what Dr. Philip Ney has to say about abortion and guilt. Well, Dr. Ney, thanks for being with us once again.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, the damage that abortion does, it's so widespread, it's so multifaceted. Let's talk about the topic of guilt, because this seems to be so universal.
Right.
I don't know that it respects any religious boundaries. It's a human reality, isn't it?
Well, yes, let's you and I talk about it. It's kind of funny that a psychiatrist, a priest, would be talking about guilt. But I guess you and I face guilt more often than other people. And I have postulated the idea that guilt with respect to abortion is predominantly a biological phenomenon. That is, every species that God created feels a certain awfulness, call it guilt, if they have done anything to destroy a member of their own kind, their own species. It had to be that way because otherwise, how would the species survive?
Right.
So leading up to doing something damaging to a member of your species, particularly your family, you feel anxious, and after you've done something damaging, you feel guilty. And I'm sure that's true for every species. Families see it in their dogs. The dog has done something bad, and the dog looks guilty, and they can tell that.
Yes.
And so I think it's deeper than a lot of people think. It's a biologically based guilt, and it's universal. That is, every woman and every man who's contributed to an abortion feel guilty. Now the question is, what do they do with it? And there aren't many good ways.
So we have a biological barrier, if you will, a physiological barrier to inflicting damage, physical damage on
Right.
another member of our species.
That's right.
And so abortion, in an abortion, you have crossed this barrier that's really not meant to be crossed.
That's right.
Is this why, for example, in the military, special training is necessary to, I mean, if killing in certain instances in warfare can be morally justified, and as we know, those strictures are very limited, but within those boundaries, even so, it takes a whole lot of training to overcome that barrier that says, no, I just can't do this.
Can't do that. And as you probably know, there's a lieutenant colonel in the Marines who wrote a book called The Instinct to Kill, in which he demonstrated the fact the instinct is not to kill. He estimated, I guess from historic sources, that only about 15% of the soldiers at the Battle of Gettysburg were actually trying to shoot and kill another soldier. It's a very difficult thing to do. But once you've done it, something changes inside you. The instinct is less strong, and you have this unavoidable guilt. And then you're going to ask yourself, well, I'm afraid of my aggression, and I don't know what to do with my guilt. And that's where, of course, you have to have some pretty expert counseling to help people deal with that. But I don't think it ever changes. I think once you've overcome that instinct to your own aggression, and you've killed a member of your own species, particularly a member of your own family, that is going to stay with you for a very, very long time.
So you kill once, it's easier to kill again, is what you're saying.
It's easier to kill again. And that's why they have the old sergeants training their new recruits. These tough, hardened, having killed somebody, they know what it's like, and they can get the recruits persuaded to do the same thing.
Of course, as you know from your work with former abortionists, which is a topic we'll discuss in an entire conversation of its own, but I remember the testimony of Dr. David Brewer, former abortionist, and he talked about how he began doing abortions, and he made reference to this guilt. He said, you know, a colleague of mine invited me to watch. I watched the abortion, and he said it hurt. He said it was like a hot poker being stuck inside of me. He said, but then when I saw a second one, it hurt still, but not as much.
Right.
And then I did one, and all over again, it was that hot poker going inside of me. But then I did another one, and it hurt a little bit less.
That's right.
That's the scary thing.
That's right. And Robert Lifton writes about this in The Nazi Doctors, how a good Mennonite could be persuaded by a whole series of small increments to go from being a passive soldier to being an active guard at a concentration camp and turning on the gas that kills thousands of people. But that first step is so awful because it's your own baby, which is where the instinct is the strongest.
It's the strongest there, yes.
So if you can overcome the instinct to kill not to kill your own baby, then there's a deep, deep damage. And I think I was telling you about Josephus writing about the destruction of Jerusalem by the Romans. There comes a point in time when the Jews are so desperate and hungry that a woman kills and cooks and eats her child. This becomes known to the Jewish defenders, and they literally stop. And even to the Romans, this is so astonishing that anybody would go that far. In those times, what are we doing in these times? By the millions. And so we have a vast problem of people with guilt and not being able to deal with it. In addition, there is, of course, this survivor guilt, the existential guilt. And we have tried hard to estimate how many people that affects, but I estimate that 50% of all the American and Canadians born after the late 60s and the early 70s are abortion survivors. And they are now struggling with existential guilt, which is a horrible thing to deal with. It's basically incurable. You feel guilty about existing. Why? Because you could have died, and like your siblings who were aborted, and you, for reasons beyond your control, survived, and you feel very guilty about being alive.
Very often the other side will try to say, well, the reason people feel guilty about their abortions is because you Christians have put that guilt on them.
Precisely.
You've said that this is wrong, and you know, if you hadn't come along with this moral code and this gospel and told them that this was wrong, well, then they wouldn't feel guilty.
Absolutely. One of all the silly arguments, put that in the realm of smoking. You know, you should not have smoked, right? And you're going to say, doctor, you're putting that guilt on me? You don't need to put that guilt on people. People feel very guilty about smoking, and they know what damage it does to them. You don't have to tell them that. But because they can't deal with their own self-guilt, they're going to have to project it. Doctor, you are making me feel guilty. I don't feel guilty about smoking all these years, in spite of the fact that I now have lung cancer. That's nonsense.
Well, we're very grateful to Dr. Ney, and Janet, those were insights that really correspond to what we see in the campaign.
That's right. You know, like I challenge people, if you don't believe what we're telling you here, go to our website, silentnomororeawareness.org, read the testimonies of the women, and then you can take what Dr. Ney said, and then in light of the testimonies, and you're really going to have a real awakening of really what's involved with abortion. It's very, very complex.
Exactly. Well, we'll be back, friends, with more of Dr. Philip Ney after this break.
There's nothing wrong with your television set. You don't see anything because there's nothing there. Abortion, the most common surgery in America. Why don't we ever see what it looks like? A message from Priests for Life.
Happy birthday to you.
The decision to have an abortion not only affects that moment in your life,
Kristen Gordon.
it affects many precious moments to come.
I now pronounce you man and wife.
Please remember, where there's life, there's hope. A message from Priests for Life.
Welcome back, friends. I'm talking with Janet Morana, and our friend Dr. Philip Ney has generously provided us with some interview footage that we recently took with him here at Life Dynamics. So Dr. Ney is going to talk now about a related topic on the after effects of abortion.
Well, you know, Father, when a woman's experienced abortion, as we know from the testimonies and dealing through Rachel's Vineyard and all the healing programs and the people we know, that, you know, after that abortion, there are things that she does in her life because of the trauma that she's received from that abortion. So some of them you'll see having repeat abortions. It's kind of like they want to get back that child they killed, so they find themselves getting pregnant again, and lo and behold, a repeat abortion. It's when the trauma hasn't been dealt with or healed, they want to reenact it. They over and over repeating, almost hurting themselves more and more because of the damage it's done to them. And so that's why it's so important for people to realize that there is hope, there is healing, because until they are properly healed, they're going to keep hurting themselves, either physically, emotionally, spiritually. It's just ongoing trauma reenactment.
Well, that's the sense in which the healing after abortion is also part of the saving of lives. In other words, the two should not be separated in people's minds, that they think, well, you've got the saving of the lives, the preventing of the abortions, and then over here you've got the healing after abortion. Well, they're very, very much connected, because the more you heal, you're actually preventing repeat abortions.
That's right. You know, and it's just bringing that wholeness back to the woman, because again, it's so dramatic, the trauma that abortion does to them. And, you know, Dr. Ney, as a psychiatrist, is providing the really ground for the things that we've been saying all along, but he's showing through sound experience and 40 years of practice what he knows, that if they're not dealt with and not healed, they are going to have repeat abortions. They're going to have repeat trauma in their lives.
Well, let's see what Dr. Philip Ney has to say then about reenactment and repeat abortions.
You actually put the person in a position of having a deep conflict, and they attempt to resolve the conflict by reenacting it. And that's why there's an increasingly high rate, I think one of the reasons, there's an increasingly high rate of repeat abortions. What did I do? I can't understand this, and I feel guilty about it, so I'll do it again. Maybe this time I can figure it out. And again. And it's something we can talk about later. But we did a study on looking at 52 factors that might determine why women choose abortion. And previous abortion is one of the top factors, and the other top factor is their mother having had an abortion. So it looks like history, sad, tragic history, must repeat itself until you understand why you did.
That seems to be a very key and important theme I'd like to delve into a little more, this reenactment of trauma. What you're saying is that a person experiences something terrible, they feel terrible about it, but they don't feel that they fully understand it or have mastered it.
Right.
So you're saying out of a desire to understand and master it, they put themselves back in the same hurtful situation.
Quite subconsciously. They don't realize they're doing it. And you can say this is true just about every tragedy you can think of, that people don't learn from the tragedy and reenact it. And that's particularly true about child abuse. It's an incredible thing how child abuse is transmitted from one generation to the next. And we studied this and found, for instance, that verbal abuse is more likely than any other kind of abuse to be transmitted from one generation to the next. And so here's a mother or a father who grows up in a family where she's called stupid all the time. And it really hurts her. It damages her self-esteem. And she swears to herself, I would never do this to my child. But when she gets angry, inadvertently, she says, stupid kid. And now she kicks herself. I swore I would never do this. Why am I doing this? Mm-hmm. And of course, as things go, she happens to marry a man who does the same thing. And now they're getting after each other. Stop calling our beautiful little boy stupid. He's not stupid. And yes, I shouldn't do that. And then you do it, and then I do it, and it goes back and forth. And so this little triangle with the child and the two parents creating this awful reenactment of verbal abuse. And it's true for abortion, too.
Well, we're very grateful for Dr. Ney's expertise in lending it not only to this program, but to much of our other aspects of our ministry as well. And Janet, in our ministry, as many viewers know, we have also Dr. Teresa Burke, who founded Rachel's Vineyard, which is an aspect of Gospel of Life Ministries. And she writes about the very same issues that Dr. Ney was just mentioning in her book, Forbidden Grief. And we want to make that book available to people. They can go to gospeloflife.com to see how they can get it. But she talks about this traumatic reenactment, which is really fascinating and applies to a lot of things in the lives of all of us. When we don't understand or can't master a trauma that's happened to us, we should be attentive to patterns in our life that show us repeating the same trauma.
Right. You know, it's just more or less you engage in a certain behavior because you're trying to, get master, like you're saying, Father, that particular thing. Yeah. And, Dr. Ney also has written several books. And if they go to our website, gospeloflife.com, they'll have all the information they need to access. For example, one book I highly recommend is Deeply Damaged,
yes.
Where you really can see where he goes through the trauma of abortion, how it deeply damages not just the woman, but the whole family. But then how, if healed, they can be restored to God's plan for them in life.
Mm-hmm. If someone reads Deeply Damaged and Forbidden Grief, one by Dr. Ney, one by Teresa Burke, they will have an absolutely unparalleled understanding of the impact of abortion. It's two excellent books.
And, I highly recommend this for pastors, youth ministers, because you're seeing these people in your ministry, and maybe there's traumas and things that are happening to them, and you're trying to counsel them, but maybe you need to really look at the reasons why, and this underlying reasons of these abortions in their families is more than likely might be a reason, and you're not even thinking of that. But you read these two resources, it will really aid you so much in your ministry.
And as a help to the kind of research that people like Dr. Ney are doing, we invite, again, those who have had abortions to come to our website to visit Silent No More Awareness campaign, which is a part of our ministry, and to share their experience. The more details they can share with us about what they've been through, the more we can help people just like them.
That's right.
Thanks, Janet.
Hello, this is Dr. Teresa Burke, the founder of Rachel's Vineyard. One of the many ways to healing after an abortion is a Rachel's Vineyard retreat. This retreat program is increasingly used throughout the world, and it's become a ministry of Priests for Life. The weekend experience is rooted in Scripture and the sacraments, and various biblical events are relived by the participants who, for example, are approached by the priest and ask the same thing that Jesus asked the blind man before healing him. What do you want me to do for you? Participants are able to share their pain in an atmosphere of support and confidentiality, and to understand how their abortion has affected various aspects of life, and to learn from the stories of others, and to confess their sins, and to have a memorial service for their child. For more information, visit rachelsvineyard.org. Hi, I'm Dr. Teresa Burke, founder of Rachel's Vineyard. If all the abortions stop tomorrow, the work of healing the wounds will have only just begun. Moms, dads, grandparents, relatives, friends, abortionists, they all need healing from the devastation that abortion brings. And we all need to accompany their healing with prayer. Now, Father Frank Pavone has written a new booklet called In the Heart of His Mercy, with prayers that we can all say for those wounded by abortion, and special prayers that those with direct involvement in abortion can say. These prayers are based on Father Frank's long experience as pastoral director of Rachel's Vineyard, the world's largest ministry for healing after abortion, and of the Silent No More awareness campaign. The gospel of life is the gospel of mercy. Order In the Heart of His Mercy today at prolifeproducts.org.
This is my body, an empty shell without your love. I see you in the face of every child. This is my body, but you are always in my heart, always in my mind. If I could choose again, there'd be no choice for me but you. I'd do what I must do. I'd even give my life for you. This is my body. You cannot tell me what to do. It's not up to you. I will decide. This is my body, and I alone will choose. If this life within me lives or dies, this is my body. I'll do what I must do. This is my life. I will not sacrifice my life for you.
This is my body given up for you, that you might live eternally. This is my body, let thy will be done, not mine. Broken as the bread, crushed as the wine. This is my body. I do what I must do. I give my
I have so much to lose. Don't tell me what to do.
This is my body, that thy will be done, not mine.
If I could choose again, there'd be no choice for me but you. I don't know you. I'll never hold you. You're always there, awake or in my dream.
I give my life.
This is my life. I cannot sacrifice my life. I would do anything for you. I can see no other way. The choice is me or you.
Father, forgive them. They know not what they do.
How can I forgive myself for what I've done to you?
My wounds have set you free. Do this in remembrance of me. This is my body given up for you, that you might live eternally. This is my body, yet thy will be done, not mine. Broken as a bread, crushed as the wine. This is my body. I do what I must do. I give my life a sacrifice. A sacrifice for you.
I give my life, I'll give my life a sacrifice.
A sacrifice of love for you.
Well, of course, I mentioned In the Heart of His Mercy. That prayer book is a beautiful prayer book written by Father Pavone. And again, I want to remind you, go to orders at priestforlife.org to order that prayer book. Also in the interview, you saw that we mentioned the beautiful book by Teresa Burke, Forbidden Grief. And I also mentioned the basic book by Dr. Philip Ney called Forbidden Grief. Again, you can contact us at Priest for Life at orders@priestforlife.org if you'd like to receive these books, or they're also available on Amazon. You can get them on Amazon. They're great resources to really have a deeper understanding the damage that abortion has doing, especially to women. Like Dr. Ney spoke about, that guilt that a woman has for destroying the life of her child. And so many times these women are having these abortions, not because of freedom of choice, feeling they have no choice. And I know that personally because of the Women of the Silent No More Awareness Campaign. If you want to find hope and healing, go to abortionforgiveness.com. And if you want to read more of the testimonies, go to abortiontestimony.com. Well, this is Janet Morana. Thank you for joining us. And also to reminding you to follow me on Instagram and Twitter and like me on my Facebook page. And thank you again for joining us for our program. God bless.